director of Evans Memorial Camp, and my wife is the administrative director. And we've been married for going on 5 years now. And this whole time we've been married, we've been in full-time ministry. And we helped to birth this place called Evans Memorial Camp, which I hope you'll get to see a little bit about today.
Coming into this ministry after 1 year of being married to my husband, I knew during our dating that this was the call that God had on his life. And so I kind of tussled with that and wrestled with it because I believe that God had called me to the youth and ministering to youth. And so I brought that to him. And at that point, I was mentoring 3 teenagers. And was constantly feeling like I was going against the current and the struggles there because I wasn't necessarily talking to the parents. I was trying to help the children. And so it was a constant battle. And when I brought it to the Lord, he clearly spoke to me that if I got a hold of the fathers, that I wouldn't have to mentor the teenagers. And so when he said that to me, I was like, okay, I will help head up a men's program. And so since then, I have not only seen that take place in how it's transforming the families and the teenagers and the children that come here definitely need daddy, but I've experienced that personally. In my home, it was a lot of partying, and my parents got divorced when I was 10 from adultery, and so when my dad did go into a program, Dunklin Memorial Camp, which is the program that my husband also went through and was teaching at. That's how I met him. He was the teacher for my dad that we went through there. And so experientially, I can testify to the children that are missing out on their daddies because it's very foundational for a person to have their father in their life. And so now my dad is doing well, and I just want to help other kids have their daddy back.
There's actually a particular father who I've invested in, who I love dearly. His name is Prentice. And because of his religious background, he didn't really truly know who God was. He never let his kids, who his oldest is Christopher, celebrate Christmas. So tonight will be the first time his son has celebrated Christmas his whole life. And the smile that I seen on his eyes when he seen his daddy for the first time 3 nights ago and over a year, that's my payday. Regeneration is a process, and we help them in this process. And every one of my leaders were once in these guys' shoes, went through the program, went through SLT, which is another year commitment, servant leadership training, and then on staff training, which is another year commitment. These are all guys that have been right there in the muck, been in the foxhole right there with them. So one, they can't tell them nothing they haven't already been through. And that's what makes them such great ministers, because they've been there, they've seen it, they've done it, and they know what helped them. And in this process of being here, they go through small groups, they go through classes. And they don't walk that stage unless we know without a shadow of a doubt that they can hear his voice. And that's what makes this place 100% success, because we know if they walk that stage and they graduate, that they can hear God's voice. And they're without excuse. And when you have the Holy Spirit as your counselor, you're without excuse. These guys, some have been in their addiction for 30 plus years, more, 15 at minimum. We get some young guys from time to time, but ultimately these guys have been a taker, have been selfish, been lying, been cheating for a long time. And when they change, ultimately God gets glorified, because everyone in their family members and friends says, wow, who is that guy? And they're just blown away and amazed. But that's something we teach them here, is how to become givers in the community. That's what makes us different. We go out and we serve this community with just a servant's heart, with not expecting nothing in return. At first, when we got here, we didn't have the funding. We didn't have the sponsorship for these guys. We didn't know how we were going to do it. But because we've taken men in need, God has blown us away. When you look at every building out here, these buildings weren't here 3 years ago. And we have multiple buildings. You'll see some footage of that. But the buildings aren't what's important. What's important is that every one of these guys are being sponsored by somebody in this community who sows into our ministry. If it's not monthly, or if it's not just a one-time sowing, they believe in what's taking place here. And because of that, we're able to help men who are homeless, who are heartbroken, who've lost their jobs, who've devastated their marriages and families and want to be restored. And we give them that opportunity, not only to come out here and work their classes during the weekdays, but on the weekends, their family get to stay with them from Friday to Sunday afternoon and have marriage classes be poured into.
Which is housed by the Reverent Village is what we've named it, but we've had 4 RVs donated, and that's where the families can come stay on the weekends. So it's been amazing that people are donating their their RVs so that we can be able to house them for visits, because without that they wouldn't be able to have their family come and stay on the weekend.
And that's another amazing thing, is just seeing God's hand in all this. We got a 6-bedroom that's donated right now that we're in the process of putting a roof on. That came from a Methodist church. The tabernacle and the cafe you're going to be in tonight came from the First Baptist Church. And how amazing is that? There's 4 buildings out here that came from the school board, okay, the government, okay, and all these different places who hear and get wind and see the fruit that's taking place there and say, hey, I want to join in. I want to help this place. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do it. But it's the faith that we stepped out in when we first came here. This room we're sitting in was just plywood and 2x4s. And I started to build with 2x6s and 2x4s bunk beds. Cold as can be, not seeing anyone around, wondering, well, when are they going to come? As they say, you build it, they'll come. And we stepped out of faith a little less than 3 years ago. And it's what God's done in 3 years in this place is only but God. It wasn't nothing me and her did. We just stepped out in faith because it was scary to come here. But when you look around, you see the lives being transformed, and you see the development of this place. You see God's heart for his children. And I'm just honored to be a part of that. And I question and ask myself sometimes, well, why do we do this? Well, ultimately, because God's called us to do it. But because both of us came from that background. I can remember as a child desiring to have a father. Now, my father might have been there present, but he wasn't there emotionally and mentally because he was in his addiction, so was my mother. But deep down inside, I had such a desire to have a family. And today I have that family because of God, with my actual birth father and birth mother, who are both doing amazing today. But growing up, we didn't have that. And I know what it's like to be without. And there's not a greater joy to see kids who've been without seeing their father for 4 years, 5 years, and wives who come here with the divorce papers in their hand because they're hurt and they're wounded, to being restored. It's an amazing experience to see God's heart for these people in action and the restoration that takes place. And we get to be a part of that. It's an honor. It's a privilege because we both come from a dysfunctional family. And today God has put our family in order. All around. Her whole side of her family's sober today, walking with the Lord, and so is mine. And for that, we're grateful.
And yes, so him speaking of my sisters, they do work at the women's ministry that we have, South Georgia House of Hope, 40 minutes away in Valdosta. And so what used to be a big mess within my family and within his family now joined together. We are modeling what God can do if you let him. And he restored our family, and now we get to help other families overcome through Jesus. Through Jesus.